Eric Bruning, can you hear?
I can hear. Thank you, Mr. Callahan.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, I'll thank Corey. Thank you, Corey. Okay, well, everybody. Okay, welcome everybody tonight to the community development portion of the meeting. We do have two items on the agenda for tonight. And the first item is the matter of a resolution in support of a proposed development expansion to the program of Amtrak. Is Mr. Pendergrass on the phone? I guess not. Is there anybody that wants to speak on the topic? I know Commissioner Lundy was on the line. Can you hear me, Matt?
Yes, Councilman, I'm here.
Okay. I know Mr. Pendergrass was going to chime in. He apparently has not as of yet. But if you have some things you'd like to share with us in regards to this topic, we'd appreciate it.
Okay. Well, first off, it's a good opportunity to kind of give you the inside baseball on what happened as we tried to make the transportation center work for an Amtrak stop. Let me stress, I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, and I'm certainly not here today advocating for the transportation center project to be brought back to life. I'm normally a very optimistic person, but I have to tell you, after exhausting all avenues, the project currently is dead, and I don't see it coming back to life until somebody like Norfolk Southern and Amtrak are willing to be partners. But I don't see that happening based upon, firsthand experience. So normally I'm not a gloom and doom guy. I like try to find a way to make things work, but I can honestly tell you that we exhausted every avenue possible. Just to run through a couple quick things, just for your background, is that first off, with Norfolk Southern, they were wanting the county to make investments in some infrastructure with overpasses and rail that we felt should have been Norfolk Southern's investments. The other big issue that popped up was, the design of that transportation center required that a ramp go over the track so that they could load on either side. And I know that there was some talk about being able to load, I guess, say platform size side. And I know that's done in a lot of communities, and that's why a lot of people weren't able to understand the indemnification issue that surfaced, the indemnity issue. There's a tunnel that goes beneath the tracks, which would go to the other side. And we were hoping we'd be able to use that. The company thought that had been closed back in the 70s, and we're surprised to find out it had not. But still, they weren't going to grant us permission to be able to do that, which meant we had to go over the tracks. That's a very active track, as we all know, in Elyia. And going over any track is certainly not probably the first option. So that's where a lot of this indemnity issue came in. Norfolk Southern basically wanted 100% indemnity from the county to cover any potential liability whatsoever. And I know that the law director is in on this meeting. She may want to look at the Ohio Attorney General Opinion 99-049. And there's no way that we could provide open-ended indemnity provisions. We had suggested trying to place a cap on a certain insurance amount, but they were unwilling to move along with that. We would have a discussion one day. The following day, it was as though they didn't remember the conversation. And it became very frustrating. As it relates to Amtrak, the project that we had looked at potentially doing was about a $12 million project before we could go forward on a $12 million project, obviously most of it being funded with transportation dollars and federal dollars. We wanted a 20-year lease commitment from Amtrak. The best that Amtrak was willing to provide was a 5-year lease agreement. So that was not much of a commitment on Amtrak's part either. So I just want you to have that information for background information. And I don't know if, if the city decides that they want to move forward with something, if they want to take a look at the current location. I think the reality of this whole project is it still doesn't change the fact that this Amtrak train, unless there's a major change in their structure, is still going to stop there in the middle of the night. I don't think that's going to change the scheduling and not achieve probably the desire that a lot of us would like, where they could stop during the day and maybe do some business in Lorain County and then get, back on the next Amtrak train coming through. But I just wanted you to have that background information. But as I said, normally I'm not about gloom and doom, but I've never seen our legal counsel so frustrated, our county administrator so frustrated, and I've never been so frustrated. You have to have partners who are willing to work with you and willing dance partners, but that just didn't take place. So that's an overview, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, well, thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that very much. Is there anybody on the panel or on the committee that has any questions for the commissioner? I'm not seeing any hands up. I guess I have a question for Commissioner Lundy. In regards to this possible grant money coming from Washington, would that take up the loophole, so to speak, of the money that would have been spent by local governments as opposed to it being spent now by the federal government going forward? I understand this is 100% with no local share if this goes through in the Congress of the United States.
To be candid with you, Councilman, until I saw the story in the paper and was called by the reporter, I was not even aware that this was coming forward. And but as I said, I would have to study that issue more. I just don't see the potential of bringing the project back to life. And it's like I said, it was an expensive project, but the important part is that indemnity issue, especially if you have to build over the tracks, and if Norfolk Southern, wants a 100% indemnity, God forbid somebody hits one of those ramps going over the tracks, it will not be a good sight. I just don't see that at all being possible, and we're just not able to do that in Ohio. It's, there's a reason why they haven't had any new train stations built in Ohio in a long, long time. The railroads just haven't been working with communities and working with the state. And that's the best answer I can give you at this time. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes, Mr. Bruning.
Thank you. I was reviewing again the application and the proposed resolution. I did not see in there any time constraints that we need to be cognizant of. There could be, but if they are, they weren't in the materials that were circulated. And seeing that we have no one here that's apparently speaking on behalf of this, Commissioner Lundy gave us some good background, but it doesn't sound like, and Commissioner, correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't sound like you are the necessarily the proponent of this or speaking on behalf of it so much as just giving us some general background, which we appreciate. But I will say that Commissioner Lundy did point out the indemnification issue. That's something that I know that I had previously been in contact with Jerry Innes about. We are well aware of that in the law director's office, that limitation. But whether or not this proposed legislation would circumvent or supplement that issue, that's not something that our office is prepared to speak on at this time. And seeing that we have no one apparently present to speak on that matter, I would suggest that maybe you would want to think about tabling this until such time as a proponent could come forward and address the committee.
I would like to respond to Assistant Law Director Bruning's statement there. I tend to agree with you on that. I did have a conversation with Mr. Pendergrass this afternoon, and he indicated to me that he would be on the Zoom call.
Hello, I just made it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, there you are. There you are.
Sorry about that. I never got the email.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's quite all right. Mr. Pendergrass, please just state your name and address for the record, and please share any information you may have.
Sure. My name is Ken Prendergast. I'm the Public Affairs Director for All Aboard Ohio. I live in Lakewood, Ohio, and All Aboard Ohio has been around since 1973. We're a nonprofit educational organization. Reason why I'm addressing you this evening is we have some interesting developments regarding passenger rail service. Amtrak has announced that they are pursuing legislation, which actually passed the U.S. House of Representatives last year, but never got a hearing in the Senate. It's part of the 5-year federal surface transportation reauthorization and would allow Amtrak to aggressively develop passenger rail routes. They've identified 35 routes nationwide, 5 of them in Ohio, 4 of them converging on Cleveland, and 1 of them passing through the city of Elyria. The Elyria route they identified was Cleveland, Elyria, Sandusky, Toledo, Detroit. They are proposing 3 trains a day in each direction, 3 east, 3 west. They would come through during daytime hours, unlike the current service that goes through Elyria in the middle of the night. And at Cleveland, it would connect with the additional routes they're proposing to the east through Buffalo and Pittsburgh onto the East Coast, and also from Cleveland down to Cincinnati. They're pursuing that route as well. From the presentation that we got from Amtrak, we All Aboard Ohio, they appear to intend to go for developing the routes that they already have, because it's lower hanging fruit. They already serve those routes. They've got stations, they've got operating crews, they've got experience with those routes. And so that's what they would like to pursue first. But again, it all hinges on this federal legislation. Again, it's the 5-year surface transportation reauthorization, something they do every 5 years for not just railroads, but highways, waterways, trucking, mass transit, all of it. And there's a sizable amount of funding in there, $25 billion that they are pursuing for this national expansion program. What I think is most intriguing about this is that they're proposing to pay 100% of the startup costs, the capital costs. That includes both planning, engineering, and construction for service startup. They're not asking for states or communities to provide a matching share. And for the first 2 years of operations, they would pay 100% of the operating costs, 90% in the 3rd year, 80% in the 4th year, and 50% in the 5th year. And after which they would have the states involved pick up any operating costs that the service itself would not pay for. So that's where things stand right now. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate that and filling us in. Is there anyone on the panel that has any questions? Okay, it looks like Mr. Tollett.
Through you, Mr. Callahan. The president, there is a lot of discussion about a pending transportation bill on top of the current stimulus coming through in about a month. Is this part of that bill, part of I think they're going to call that economic jumpstart program, is a part of that transportation bill?
That's my understanding, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions?
I have one, Tom.
Okay, go right ahead.
Through you, do we have any idea what kind of cost would be involved 5 years down the road for the operating from the city of Elyria?
From the city of Elyria, nothing. It's just in terms of what the community wants to do in terms of a station. So, for example, Amtrak has its own station right now on the east side of downtown. I jokingly referred to the station with the chairman as an Amshack. It's just a bus shelter and a platform, which could suffice as a station location, but I think something in order to generate the kind of economic development that the city of Elyria and Lorain County would expect from a transportation center would be to have it at the Lorain County Transportation Center. That would require some significant investment that Amtrak appears willing to provide. So, but in terms of operating costs, that would be the operation of the station itself. The county could charge Amtrak lease revenues or tenant fees to be at that station if that's where they want them to be. But this is all kinds of things that would be developed during the planning process. And if the community wishes to opt out of being a station stop or just have the station be over at the east end of town at the existing Amtrak station, that would be up to the community to decide at that time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? It looks like, is that Mr. Oswald?
Yes,
Go ahead, Mr. Oswald.
through you, Mr. Chair. How many people do we, or this could be for Mr. Prendergast, how many people do we have traveling through that make stops at our stop off? And that would be my first question. And my next one, are we just, right now, you're asking for our support and then we would further just to be involved in it so we don't have to actually do anything? Thank you.
Yeah, in terms of the ridership, I'd have to look that up. There's data on that. But in terms of what this legislation would do, it's merely asking for Congress to pass the legislation that would allow for this expansion. It does not obligate the city of Elyria in any way. It's just saying, hey, we think this legislation is a good idea and we think you should pass it, Congress.
Thank you.
Yes, I will repeat that too. As earlier I said, this is just a resolution of support for the proposed development of the Amtrak expansion. So it's just the city of Elyria supporting it in a resolution. So that was a great question. So thank you, Mr. Oswald. Are there any other questions?
Mr. Callahan,
Yes, go right ahead.
thank you, through you. So it passed the House last year and it hasn't yet gone through the Senate. What are the chances that it will pass the Senate? That's question number one. Question number two, Mr. Lundy did not seem very optimistic that this would go anywhere, and do we need the county commissioners to be on board with this? That's question number two. And is Norfolk Southern on board with this as well? Thank you.
Great question.
Yeah. This passed the last session of Congress, so it has to go through the process over again. So it has to go back to the House of Representatives. Also has to go through the Senate, as you mentioned. We think that with the changes in Washington, D.C., that there's a much better chance of it passing both houses. And certainly the president has given his very strong support of passenger rail development in this country. As to where this thing could go, that's again up to Amtrak to decide, and also in their negotiations with Norfolk Southern, they would have to reach a partnership with Norfolk Southern. That again is something that would happen through the planning process, and that at the conclusion of that process, they would make a go no go decision at that time.
Mr. Lundy, did you have anything you'd want to add to that?
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if it was appropriate for me to ask any questions. I know that this is a council work session here. Yeah. If I could, just my experience was, to Mr. Pendergast, my experience was that I got the sense that Norfolk Southern wasn't very receptive to increasing passenger rail activity on their lines. Has there been a change of heart on that? Because Amtrak can have all the plans in the world, but Norfolk Southern is going to make the final decision.
Sure. It all depends on how you approach Norfolk Southern. If you, this is like somebody asking to move into your house And, oh, by the way, I also want to build a swimming pool in your backyard too. That usually doesn't go over very well unless you develop a partnership with them and make it worth their while. That happened, for example, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, that Norfolk Southern has a route from the city of Norfolk up to Washington, D.C. Amtrak worked in partnership and with the Commonwealth of Virginia on developing the infrastructure that was necessary to not only operate the passenger service effectively, but also to accommodate future growth in freight service and to not negatively impact the existing freight service that was there. So once they reached that agreement in partnership, they were able to move forward. And in fact, Norfolk Southern was there at the ribbon cutting ceremony for the new service. And if you read their press releases, they were quite welcoming of it. So again, it all depends on how you approach them and work with them. If you're just going to knock on the door one day, show up and say, I want to build a swimming pool in your backyard, they're going to tell you, go pound salt. Again, we'll see how they approach this.
Yep.
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Lundy.
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Chairman, just a quick follow-up question. I guess, Ohio doesn't exactly have a great reputation when it comes to passenger rail after sending $400 million back during the Casey administration. And I can tell you when I was in Columbus, sadly, the majority in the legislature made a mockery of passenger rail. And, we sent $400 million back. I think it may have ended up in Wisconsin, if I remember correctly. It went someplace else, but I know it didn't end up.
Michigan, unfortunately.
Michigan, okay. Wow, a place up north. So what kind of role could the state of Ohio itself play in this whole thing? Because I would think the state also has to embrace this.
It would. And in fact, Amtrak specifically developed this program of paying 100% of the costs, paying 100% of the operating costs for the first couple of years and then declining years thereafter. They developed this program specifically for tough nuts to crack like Ohio. They want to get into some of these states that don't have good passenger rail service. I sent some information, I don't know if it was been shared with the committee or not, about the that Ohio is the 7th most populous state in the country, but ranks 27th in passenger service per, boardings per 1,000 people. Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati were all ranked in the top, or I should say bottom 10 in terms of boardings, which of course in Columbus, there isn't any. There's no service at all to Columbus. It's the largest city in the Western Hemisphere without any passenger rail service. So Amtrak wants to get into some of these cities that they don't have good service in and develop those routes. And this is why they developed this program, not just for Ohio, but there's, other places. Nashville doesn't have any service. Atlanta has only 1 train a day. Houston, 4th largest city in the country, has only 3 trains per week. These are the kinds of things that they want to overcome, and this program was intended to overcome that.
Thank you. Mr. Lundy, did you have any other questions?
No, not at this time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lundy. Okay, are there any other questions from anyone on the panel?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go
Jack
right
Baird.
ahead. Yes, Mr. Baird,
Yeah.
go right ahead.
At least the way I see it, it doesn't look like we have any skin in the game at this point in time. So I think a resolution of support is fine. I'd like to see more train traffic, passenger traffic in the state, or at least the ability to have it. And this certainly seems to be answering that question. So in my opinion, I don't think we have anything to lose by approving it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Baird. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay. Well, I tend to agree with Councilman Baird. I mean, we heard Commissioner Lundy gave us his history of trying to deal with this issue in the past and not having any luck. And then we heard the other side in regards to possibly this could be a new beginning, or still could be a long shot. But as Mr. Baird just had said, that we really don't have any skin in the game. This is just strictly a resolution in support that we would be passing, unless is there anybody else that has any questions? I'm seeing nothing. So I will go ahead and just read the committee report. We have considered the matter to support the proposed development expansion program for Amtrak, authorizing a resolution of support from the city of Elyria for the proposed expansion of passenger rail services for Amtrak. Could I get a motion?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay,
Point of order, community development.
Make a difference. I don't think it does. Doesn't say community development. Except at the
Oh.
top. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Callahan, point of
Yes.
order, Mr. Barrett made the motion, and this is community development.
yes, that is true. That is true.
I stand corrected.
Okay.
I
That's
just,
okay.
I want to get on this train and get it moving. Let's go.
So having said that, Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. The motion made by Mrs. Mitchell and it was
Second.
seconded by
Mr. Sarah?
Mr. Sarah. Mr. Sarah, thank you. Got a question on the motion.
Question on the motion.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion carried. I want to thank Mr. Lundy and Mr. Pendergrass for sharing their thoughts tonight. We appreciate that very much. And we'll pass
Thank
this
you.
on to full council next week. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one more item on the agenda for community development, and that is the matter of a request to amend codified ordinance 1131.02 to overlay the light industrial district over the business general district at property located at Midway Mall as set forth in chapter 1176 of the codified ordinances. Mayor Whitfield.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, committee members. This is the final stretch for the Midway Mall zoning overlay. So you've all done the legislative work that we're able to do it, and now this is actually to apply that zoning overlay to the parcels. Now, there's one piece of cleanup I'm going to ask Mr. Taylor to speak to, but overall, this is just that final leg of the stretch to apply the zoning overlay to the Midway Mall parcels, so that it can be utilized for the light industrial district. Mr. Taylor.
Sorry, Mayor and Council, through you. The only change we discussed today, there was one accidental additional parcel that actually had been combined. We talked to Old Republic Title, and one of the parcels doesn't exist anymore. So that's been told to Dawn. We just need to exclude that parcel from the equation. We have all the parcels, it's just one was named that wasn't supposed to be there. I don't have that in front of me, but Dawn, if she's available, has that information as to which parcel. You know what, I fibbed, I have that parcel. Parcel 062-403-1107-093 is a duplicate parcel that no longer exists based on consolidation at the mall, so that would be deleted from the requested parcels to be in the overlay district.
Jim? This is Eric. Jim, was that in the draft legislation I sent you? Because I thought we took care of that issue with Old Republic.
You and I talked about it. I just didn't know if it had been removed.
No, I don't think that was in there. So I think that's a non-issue.
Okay.
Repeat that parcel number for me though.
Yeah, I talked to Judy at Old Republic today.
Yeah.
We went through the map. The parcel number is 0624031107033. That parcel no longer exists at the county level.
Yep, I already had that out, so we're okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, are there any other comments from anyone or any questions from anyone? I'm not seeing any. Mr. Bruning, is there anything else you would like to add to this?
I think the mayor and Mr. Taylor spoke on this already. We've taken care of the legislation, creating this overlay district, and now this is adding all of the parcels at the mall to this district as we previously discussed. So if anyone has any questions on that, I've already got the legislation drafted. You don't have it in front of you because I might tweak it a little bit. This is the first time we're doing this particular method. And I'm gonna have to use it for a template in the future, so I might tweak it between now and next Monday and probably lose sleep over it after that, wondering if I did it right. But other than that, I think we're set.
Well, I personally like to say that I think you'll get it. I think you're gonna get it right the first time. So
Thank you.
I got all the confidence in you. Anyway, are there any other questions or comments from anyone on the panel?
Well, through you, Chair, this is the mayor again. I believe
hello,
we were
Mayor.
asking for this to be passed as an emergency.
Okay. Okay, when I read the committee report, I will add the emergency at the end. Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments from anyone? Okay. I'm seeing none. I'm going to read the committee report. We have considered the matter of an L-I light industrial district to be overlaid over the BG Business General District at properties located at Midway Mall. This is an ordinance amending section 1131.02, known as the zoning ordinance, to overlay a light industrial district over the Business General District as set forth in chapter 1176, redevelopment overlay district for real property located at Midway Mall. And then there'll be a list of all the parcels, and this would be passed as an emergency. So could I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Motion made by Mr. Sarah, seconded by Mrs. Mitchell.
Question.
Question on the motion. All those in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, at this time, there is no further business for community development. So I would ask if there's someone that wants to make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Mr. Sarah, seconded by Mrs. Mitchell.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried.